Hello, Saga Group. Are you ready for another little trip to the botanical garden here in Visby? When we first came here, it was just a few days into January. And now it's May 2nd, and I thought it would be great fun to take you with me on a walk through the botanical garden so you can see it in its spring dress. So let's get started. The beech tree that I always like to admire every time I come is really starting to come into leaf. They're quite small, but they're beautiful. The first thing I do is come over and greet her. I put my hand right here. All right. Now from here we get a nice little sweep of the garden, seeing the many spring bulbs and how much greenery there is now as things start to really burst from the earth. We're going to begin by going first to the physic garden, the medicinal herb garden, which we looked at in January, and you can see how much growth there has been. This is some Solomon seal right in front of us, which I swear is twice as big as it was yesterday. It's really popping out of the earth. Here's a nice overview from the terrace. We are going to approach this limestone wall where there are 3 fruit trees espalierd against it. So the tree with the white blossoms is a pear tree. I'll take a peek at that. And the one in the center with the pink blossoms is a peach. And then at the end we have a fig tree, and you see the figs on it. Those are actually last year's figs, which will ripen this summer. So the figs actually will overwinter and will ripen this year. A beautiful feature of this upper terrace is the wisteria, which has been lovingly trained against these wires, and you can see that these blossoms are just about to burst. It's going to be spectacular in another couple of weeks. Part of this upper garden is also yummy things to eat. So we have some rhubarb growing here, appropriately right next to some strawberries. And then we have some asparagus. I hope you can see them. They're just starting to come up. So this is sparris in the Swedish language, and Gotland sparris is renowned throughout all of Sweden. It's a well-known fact that the Swedish royal family favors Gotland asparagus for the royal table, something which Gotlanders are justly proud of. So we're going to continue on now. Nice overview of the little tea house here. And as we come down, we can admire at the base of the tea house that some of the peonies are starting to come in. These large pink buds will be opening soon. Those will be quite beautiful. And there's grape hyacinths still, anemones, lots which is coming up around the base. Again, this hill was created when they excavated for the pond on the other side of the garden. So that's how they ended up with this little hillock. Here's another tree peony. Great. Now we're going to go to our right first and look at a garden which was under construction, and I was very interested in January because I was watching the mason lay this beautiful white limestone paving. So he's finished now, and we're just awaiting for this garden to be opened. They have corten steel beds, and it's been planted with a variety of flowers and other plants. I can't quite tell what all of them are, but I'm sure they're going to open this quite soon, so that will be fun to go in. It's beautiful orange-yellow tulips right here, quite striking. And now we're going to head over to look at the botanical garden's beehives. They're very smart to have their own bees. Good for the garden, good for everything and everybody. I like to think of these bees as being the descendants of Tinder's bees. So you can see them buzzing in and out, making honey, pollinating all these beautiful flowers. It's a good day for them. Sun is shining. They're happy, as you can see. All right. We're going to walk through the rose terrace now. You might remember this from January when we were remarking over the fact that the roses still had blossoms on them. Well, those roses are still here, but they have been severely pruned back to encourage new growth. But what they've done in the beds while we're waiting for the roses is to put in lots of beautiful tulips for color. So this is the rose terrace. We're going to go over to one edge of the Excedra, which is this semicircular structure, and look at these particularly lovely tulips. These just opened a few days ago, and they're truly striking color. Sort of maroon and dark pink, magenta and cream. I just think they're so beautiful. So I really want you to see these. Aren't they lovely? All right. Everything is really starting to come now in this Excedra. As you can see, some tulips just starting, others are opened, but this is just going to be filled with some marvelous plants. These pink double tulips are exceptionally lovely, aren't they? Truly beautiful. All right. Now, I'd like to pause right now and admire three unusual trees. As I pointed out to you before, Gotland has a truly favored geographical location. There are trees and shrubs that can grow on Gotland that cannot grow anywhere else in Sweden. And this is because not only the mitigating effects of the Baltic Sea surrounding Gotland, but also because we're at the end of the Gulf Stream. The third reason is simply the huge stone wall, which also acts as a warming factor to protect these trees. So what we're looking at are three trees which you really won't find anywhere else in Sweden. The first is a cedar of Lebanon. It's the one we're looking at now. It has very, very interesting pine cones. And then in the center is a sequoia tree. The only one in Sweden. I know it does not compare to those in California, but it is so remarkable to have any kind of a sequoia here. And then the third is a dawn redwood from China. And what's so interesting to me about the dawn redwood is its beautiful structure and the fact that it is deciduous. You can see the bright green leaves are just beginning to come in now. So that's very unusual in my experience, because I always think of all redwoods as being coniferous. We'll get a little closer to these leaves on the dawn redwood. This is from China. Such a wonderful tree. It's so sculptural. All right. And you can see the town wall just behind us. And as you well know, right beyond that wall is the Baltic. So it's really nice to have that sheltering wall because the winds from the west are very strong. So we're coming to the gateway, which the bathing Freds had created so that they could get to the Baltic more easily to swim. That's the Charlotte's Gate, the Lover's Gate it's called. And we'll take a little pause here just to look at the column there in the center, which is thickly planted with daffodils that are both a pale ivory color and a yellow. Very striking. And I also think you might be able to see the towers of the Domkirken. One of the wonderful things about Visby is that there's no tall buildings, and just as it was in the 12th century, the cathedral is the biggest building in town. So nothing has dwarfed it. It's like this protective force over us all. Such a nice feeling to look up and see the towers of the Domkirken. It's a very, I always tell visitors, you can't get lost, because as long as you can see the church, you know where you are. So I want to show you something which I think is great fun in the garden and shows a sense of whimsy. It's a statue of one of Sweden's great heroes and one of the world's great scientific figures, Carl Linnaeus, who we honor as being the scientist, or natural philosopher as they were called in his day, who set up the modern method of classifying plants and animals. He came to Gotland in 1741. He was quite a young man still, a university professor at the University of Uppsala, and he had 6 students with him, the youngest of whom was only 14 years of age, kind of a child prodigy. And they spent a month here on Gotland, and during that time found about 100 plants which had never been found, reported, or classified before. So this is a fantastic caricature sculpture made out of a giant tree trunk, as you can see, of the great man himself, Carl Linnaeus. And I know that it looks quite fanciful, but if you have seen a portrait of Linnaeus, you will know that he did in fact have a beak for a nose. So it's not that inaccurate. And I think it adds a touch of whimsy to the garden. Great. We're now going to turn to one of the remarkable features of the Botanical Garden, and that is the ruins of St. Olaf. St. Olaf is one of the great patron saints of the Norse world. He was a Norwegian king who Christianized the Nordic countries by the sword. And here in Sweden, he's acknowledged as sort of the patron saint of Sweden, along with a female saint, Santa Birgitta. This impressive stone pile is one of 4 towers that originally anchored the church. So you can imagine how massive the church of St. Olaf was if this is only one tower. So we're going to get a little closer and peek in. These gates are usually open on May 1st. I see they're not quite yet open. Aha, how interesting. So I see the Botanical Garden is using this as a little bit of a storeroom here. This looks like a shipment of brand new terracotta pots, probably from Italy, which they just placed in here. That's fascinating. Let's look up at the roof structure. It's so wonderful because, of course, there's no plaster or paint obscuring the groin vaulting of this Gothic ceiling. So you can really see how precisely fitting together those stones are. This is a church that was built in the 1100s. So the other thing that's extremely picturesque about St. Olaf is that there is an enormous ivy vine growing up the side with the most beautiful root system, trunk system, I should say. Look at this. Ivy in the Guatemala language, the language of Gotland, is called rindi, and this is a magnificent rindi, probably holding the ruin up at this point. It's quite remarkable. So to complete our tour, our spring tour of the Botanical Garden, we're going to head over to that pretty little bridge that you see directly ahead of us. And that's where we'll conclude. So you can see the tables and benches are out. We didn't have those on our January video, but they've been placed out so people can sit and enjoy. Now you're looking here at the little waterfall at sort of the highest part of the garden, and that is flowing all the way down this rill that goes down to the pond that was excavated so that the garden would have its own source of water in the 1850s when they were building it. And again, that soil was used to build the little mound on which the tea house is. So we're going to walk through and stand on the bridge, and I am hoping that you will be able to hear the sound of the water splashing down this rill. I'll bend over. I'm wearing my lavalier mic today. I hope you can hear that. It's such a soothing sound. All right, so one little pan over the rest of the garden, and I promise that we will do this again in high summer, let's say late July or early August, so that you can see the garden in its summer dress now that you've seen it in spring on May 2nd. So I hope you've enjoyed this little walk with me, and I'm, as always, so grateful for your attention, your affection, and your company, because you are keeping me company remotely during this difficult time, and I hope I'm doing that for you as well. Please take care, and we'll speak to each other very soon. Thank you.